good morning and welcome to Rising. Oh, what a show we have for you today. It's good to be back with you. Niall is here and is here all week and maybe part of next week.
Yes, Monday of next week, I think, but concentrating on this Monday, taking it one day at a time.
One Monday at a time. Well, good to see you. It is Arctic in here for some reason in the studio, so if we're chattering, it's because we're not properly heated.
Arctic in here, chilly outside. It's actually warmer outside than it is in here. But we'll persevere nonetheless.
We shall do our best.
So coming up on Rising, House Democrats say that convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell is planning on asking President Trump to commute her federal prison sentence. And they're also sounding the alarm over the allegedly lenient and preferential treatment she's getting in prison.
Plus, Joe Rogan and actor Billy Bob Thornton, favorite actor of mine, took some shots at other actors who use award ceremonies to promote political causes.
And 8 Senate Democrats have voted in favor to end the longest government shutdown ever. But first of all, Robby, let's get started. What is on your radar?
I almost did a radar on how much I dislike Zohran Mamdani.
Oh, no!
But instead, I decided to start the week on a more conciliatory note.
You saved my feelings.
Here we go. So, no one ever said Donald Trump lacked creativity. The president is clearly concerned that the Supreme Court could rule against his widespread use of tariffs to engage in diplomacy with countries the world over, and has come up with an idea to make them more popular with Americans. Trump is promising to pay every American, except those who are already very wealthy, $2,000 per person. Trump wrote this on Truth Social. People that are against tariffs are fools. We are now the richest, most respected country in the world with almost no inflation and a record stock market price. 401ks are highest ever. We're taking in trillions of dollars and will soon begin paying down our enormous debt. 37 trillion record investment in the USA. Plants and factories going up all over the place. A dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone. Well, this idea comes at a moment where Trump's tariffs, well, they could be in jeopardy, constitutionally speaking. The Supreme Court is currently hearing arguments regarding a case that will decide whether the president has the power to unilaterally impose tariffs without action from Congress, now under his broad emergency powers. Last week, the SCOTUS justices seemed skeptical that the president possessed this power. A key moment came when Associate Justice Neil Gorsuch asked whether the president could use these same emergency powers to impose tariffs in other contexts. Take a listen.
Could the president impose a 50% tariff on gas-powered cars and auto parts to deal with the unusual and extraordinary threat from abroad of climate change?
It's very likely that could be done. Very likely.
I think that has to be the logic of your view.
Yeah, in other words, obviously this administration would say that's a hoax, it's not a real crisis, but...
I'm sure you would.
Yes, but that would be a question for Congress under our interpretation, not for the courts.
That was the sound of every properly conservative American dying a little on the inside. Now, I don't care how much you love Donald Trump. If the president can declare tariffs on that basis, then just imagine what Democrats will do when they get back into power. Now, as for Trump's latest scheme, $2,000 for every American sounds like a great deal. When will the checks be in the mail, I wonder? But don't get too excited. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent clarified that these cash payments to Americans could take many forms. Here he was explaining the policy to the media over the weekend.
The $2,000 dividend could come in lots of forms, in lots of ways, George. It could be just the tax decreases that we are seeing on the president's agenda. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of auto loans. So, those are substantial deductions that, are being financed in the tax bill.
But here's the problem. Now, while it certainly sounds good for every American to receive a check for $2,000, the revenue raised from tariffs comes from, well, all of us. Tariffs are, in fact, a tax on the American people. Foreign countries don't pay them. Foreign firms don't pay them. The cost of the tariff is paid by the importer, no matter the good or the product or the resource or the service in question. Whoever is purchasing the tariffed item, whether it's Japanese cars or South American sugar, that's the party who pays them, the purchaser. That party then passes that cost on to domestic consumers by raising the price that they're going to charge when they sell it in this country. All of the revenue raised by the federal government vis-a-vis tariffs is being collected already from the American people. So seen in that light, the true light, the idea of the U.S. receiving some of that money back in the form of checks, Well, that's a bit absurd. The tariff revenue was collected from us in the form of higher prices. Skip the checks, just get rid of the tariffs and watch prices fall. Now, conservatives, if they're being honest with themselves, know that the best way to have a healthy economy is to have a federal government that is maximally hands-off. It is not a conservative agenda, but a socialist agenda, a Zoran Mamdani agenda, perhaps, that wants central government control over the economy in the form of vast regulation, price fixing, and taxation. Tariffs are taxes. Conservatives know this. The Supreme Court knows it too. So with respect to those $2,000 checks, thank you, Mr. President, but no thank you. Just cut taxes, cut tariffs, watch the magic of the market economy go to work.
Well, I'm going to skip over your gratuitous jab at Mr. Mamdani and move on to the substance of your argument. As you know, you and I have broadly similar views on the tariff question. I think that there are some isolated examples where they could be justified. I don't think you think they're ever justified, but the general thrust of your argument, which is that they're a tax on everybody, I do agree with that. I was also scribbling notes as you were going through your radar there, and just some of the things that struck me were, for example, Trump tweeting about 401ks being their highest ever. Of course, 401ks very much linked to the stock market. That's not at its highest ever because of tariffs. In fact, tariffs in terms of the Liberation Day tariffs sunk the stock market by quite a significant amount, and then they rallied, the markets rallied back as Trump gradually pulled back from the tariffs. The Supreme Court case, I think we discussed briefly last week, but it does seem to me of a piece of Trump's tendency to just declare emergencies in various ways as a way to get around whatever the existing laws or practices or guardrails are. And then Scott Bessent making that argument, well, it could come in many forms. I just laughed.
Good feelings.
Good feelings, good vibes.
Yeah.
$3,000 of good vibes for everyone.
I'm very concerned that the Republican Party, the Trump administration, Trump himself, frankly, is not at this moment paying close enough attention to affordability and the general economic situation being such a chief concern of voters. It should not be surprising that this is the chief concern of voters. This has remained now the chief concern of voters for a long time. This is what sunk Biden, the perception that his policies had contributed to inflation. They had not gotten inflation under control. They were in denial about the extent of the inflation problem. People were seeing the sticker price of goods at the grocery store staying high and blaming Biden for that. Trump comes into power and does not, and you know, I'm not like unfairly critical of the guy. I don't try to slam him left and right. I've had some positive things to say about the foreign policy agenda of the administration. The domestic policy agenda is just is gone awry because these prices remain high and people are still feeling that pain. And that's not actually surprising, again, given the tariffs and some other policies. This is a case where I love to disdain economic experts or experts in any field as much as anyone else, but the economic experts all said if you do this kind of thing, it will hurt the market, it will hurt affordability, and they did it anyway, and this is what has happened. It's persisted to hurt.
Yeah, and the Trump people take refuge in the idea that some of the predictions for inflation were higher than they've turned out to be. But it's still the case that inflation at 3% on an annualized basis is pretty much exactly where it was when Trump came into power. Given the centrality of that issue to his election, as you point out, it's obviously a problem for him that inflation has not been curbed in any significant way at all. And so we see when it's broken down, when his performance is broken down according to various topics, you see basically his worst marks on inflation. And I think that goes to some of the points you were raising.
It's really frustrating that the administration, almost on some very basic level, doesn't seem to understand that when you say, you know, whatever it is, car parts from Canada cost 20% more, that means the price of cars, things we're buying here, goes up accordingly, just in a very basic way.
Yeah, not that hard to understand.
Yeah.
Coming up, former President Biden is issuing a warning about Trump's presidency. Stick with us, we'll be right back with that.
He now says we are, quote, in a golden age. The only gold is stuff he's hanging on the mantle of what? Isn't it? Oh. But this, all kidding aside, does anyone feel like this is a golden age? It's in the golden age. The fact of the matter is that it was a very, very dark moment.
What sharp and energetic commentary. Former President Biden once again calling this a dark time as his public criticisms of Trump grow louder and more frequent.
Biden spoke at a Nebraska Democratic Party fundraising dinner in Omaha Friday, condemning the president for everything from withholding SNAP benefits to demolishing the East Wing of the White House. Take a listen.
I knew Trump was going to take a wrecking ball of the country. But I had no idea, I have to admit, I didn't know it was going to be an actual wrecking ball. Anyone see what he's done to the East Wing of the People's House, the White House? It's a perfect symbol of his presidency. Trump is taking a wrecking ball not only to the People's House, but to the Constitution, to the rule of law, to our very democracy.
But Biden later pointed to last Tuesday's elections as a reason for Democrats to hope.
The fact is that we had a great night in Virginia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California, New York City, Georgia, Mississippi, even in Mississippi. Look, the American people are sending a message. They're sending a message to Trump and to his crowd. You work for us, Mr. President. We don't work for you. You work for us. Not just billionaires and millionaires. I mean it sincerely. I'm angry. You work for us.
So far, neither Trump nor the White House has responded to Biden. Well, look, the former president is welcome to speak and fundraise for Democrats and to be critical of what Trump is doing. Nothing really original or surprising in the remarks he made, without overly dwelling or being nasty about his age and condition. I'll just say he looked rather frail and sounded extremely frail to me there, and he was obviously not speaking off the cuff.
Yep.
He was delivering prepared remarks, even those he was, I don't mean to overly pick it didn't seem the most spectacular delivery ever, and the idea that he was that their thought was for him to be president for another 4 years is just laughable, but I wish him well, and he can speak his mind. He's every right to do that as an American.
Yeah. This is one of those separating the message from the messenger ones. I think the dark time in America is something that obviously many millions of Americans feel about the Trump presidency. I understand that. I have argued the reasons for that numerous times here. Democrats did do well in those elections on Tuesday. I'll talk about that in the context of the government shutdown deal later. But there is obviously a very different question as to whether it is helpful or useful for Democrats to have Joe Biden out there. And I think the overwhelming answer from any left of centre American would be no. He wasn't notably out in advance of those Tuesday elections. It was Obama primarily who took the lead as a big name surrogate for those candidates. And just Biden's obvious age and frailty again just reignites the debate about who knew what about his condition. And prior to the infamous debate that then sparked the whole drama leading to his withdrawal from the race. So I don't think it's very helpful. I always feel a little sad watching him, because although there are things that he did as president that I would strongly disagree with, and although I think the decision to seek a second term initially was a pretty catastrophic mistake, I do see him as a fundamentally decent human being. And to have someone out there who's there's almost a degree of pity for him, I think, even from opponents now. And that's a rather grim way to end a long career in public life, having been elected to the Senate in the 1972, I think, certainly sometime in the early 1970s. So yeah, I find it a little sad all around.
Yeah, I was never able to muster much personal animus for Joe Biden himself. Seemed like a nice, if sometimes gruff old man, the way old men are, the way our grandparents and great-grandparents are, was reminiscent of that. He's a snappy dresser. For nice things to say about the man.
Loves his family, has suffered enormous tragedy, obviously, in his life.
Understood. I think that was maybe if you're moving away from policies, obviously the affirmative case for Joe Biden in 2020 being that we were going through as a nation a time of tremendous suffering,
right.
And he was someone who that was him at his best, seeming to understand and empathize with people engaged in that. Now, the fact of the COVID campaigning, masking the already kind of advanced aging he was going through, ended up also benefiting him. But outside of rooms of just extreme Democratic partisans, I don't think they're clamoring for more Biden, the way they do clamor for more Obama, at least to some extent.
Absolutely. I mean, it's notable how rare it is for Biden to make these public appearances.
Yeah.
And with all due respect to the people of Nebraska, a Friday night in Omaha is not necessarily the biggest engagement it's possible to imagine in the world. So I think all of that points to the fact that there is a general awareness of that he's not a very useful spokesperson or surrogate for the Democratic cause, and it just gives Trump and MAGA world a target to aim at, in my view.
Yeah, and he's he comes across as so old, and I don't even know if there was a demand for him, how much he'd be willing to do. He must have some limitations at this point. Well, and he's undergoing treatment for cancer.
Right.
So.
No, I know. It's just all. I think it is time to sort of get off the stage with as much grace as can be mustered at this point, and leave it to other people. Who that will be in the Democratic Party, that's a whole other conversation. But it's. I think Joe Biden's moment is gone, and it would be best leaving that behind.
Next up, House Democrats say that Ghislaine Maxwell will ask Trump to commute her federal prison sentence. Don't go anywhere.
Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee say that convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell is planning to ask President Trump to commute her federal prison sentence. That sentence is set to run through 2037.
Now, this morning, the committee's Democrats sent Trump a letter telling him that the information they've received shows that, quote, either Ms. Maxwell is herself requesting you release her from her 20-year prison sentence for her role as a co-conspirator in Jeffrey Epstein's international child sex trafficking ring, or that this child sex predator now holds such tremendous sway in the second Trump administration that you and your DOJ will follow her clemency recommendations.
The letter also mentions the alleged special treatment Maxwell is getting at the Bryan Federal Prison Camp in Texas. That's where she was transferred over the summer.
NBC reported this weekend that reported this weekend that Maxwell was sending emails to her friends and family boasting about the prison's conditions. She writes in one of them, according to NBC, quote, the institution is run in an orderly fashion, which makes for a safer, more comfortable environment for all people concerned, inmates and guards alike. Maxwell also mentioned that, quote, I feel like I have dropped through Alice in Wonderland's looking glass. I am much, much happier here and, more importantly, safe.
Democrats are calling for Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who met with Maxwell over the summer, to be made available for a public hearing. They want to ask him questions about the use of law enforcement resources and address any, quote, potential exchange of favors.
One of Maxwell's lawyers, David Oscar Marcus, told NBC News in response to their reporting, quote, that's tabloid behavior, not responsible reporting. Anyone still interested in that kind of gossip reveals far more about themselves than about Ghislaine. It's time to get over the fact she is in a safer facility. We should want that for everyone. I actually fully agree with that. It wasn't like they boasting that they're giving her chocolate sundaes all the time or something. She's saying she feels safer in the conditions. I am glad that she feels safer. I hope that everyone in prison feels safe. I mean, maybe I'm the bleeding heart liberal here. I don't think... I absolutely believe there are people who need to be in prison, and the purpose of prison is to keep us safe from them. Prison should not feel like torture. People in prison should not suffer starvation or sexual abuse, as particularly many men in prison do. That's all wrong and bad. We should, again, shouldn't be torture to be in prison. It should be, the conditions should be what the conditions are. So that she is safer and fine is perfectly fine by me. I don't, again, if some extraordinarily beyond the pale special treatment. That doesn't sound like it was. It sounds like she's just in a better prison now, and good for her.
Well, look, I think the conversation about prison reform is a whole other bigger conversation, and I think you and I would have a lot of common ground on that point. I think the point here, though, is the obvious and plausible suspicion that Ghislaine Maxwell is enjoying better conditions than she was previously in because of providing some sort of exculpatory information or testimony around Trump. The suspicion is that she was moved to this facility after meeting Todd Blanche for 9 hours over the course of 2 days, and basically, it would seem, saying that she hadn't seen Trump do anything nefarious anytime she was aware of him in the whole Epstein circle. So the fear is of a quid pro quo, essentially. You say that you didn't see Trump do anything wrong, and he will see you treated right. And this idea that she is going to petition him in some fashion for the commutation of her sentence is part of that picture as well. We are talking about a woman who got a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking. I mean, these are serious offences and a serious sentence to go with it.
Well, but the problem is, and a woman who was caught, lying in the course of her own defense so pathologically that I don't know how we could trust anything she said in either direction. She could say Trump never did anything wrong. She could say very damaging things about Trump. And in both cases, she will say, not to overly try to read into her character motivations, she is a malicious figure. She will say whatever she thinks is going to get her out of prison or into better conditions, right?
Well,
is that not the...
Well, that may well be true, but isn't it incumbent when there is a convicted person who does that, isn't it incumbent upon the government, the authorities or whatever, not to be taken in by that, or not to utilise it to say, okay, you felon will say anything that we want you to say, so say this and we'll treat you well. I mean, that is a fundamentally corrupt bargain.
Well, certainly, but I can sense Democrats wanting her to say something very damaging to Trump. There's no evidence that Trump was involved in or aware of anything pernicious involving Jeffrey Epstein. He cut ties with him well before any public knowledge of Epstein's crimes. So in absence of any other information or any other suggestion that there was something, I would just be inclined to say we should disbelieve what she says in either direction, and she should continue to serve out her sentence. I certainly don't think she should be pardoned by this administration or any future administration.
No,
she should serve out her sentence in peace and safety like any other prisoner.
Oh, for sure. I think the fear is special treatment, but I'm sure we'll return to this topic numerous other times. Next on Rising, how the Dems lost the government shutdown. Stick around for my thoughts on that.
Welcome back to Rising. Niall, what's in your notes today?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Robby, because after you taking on the president over tariffs from your chair, it's time for me to take on the Democrats over healthcare from mine. Not all Democrats, to be fair. I'm talking about the 8 Democratic senators who caved shamefully last night, handing the GOP a big win on the shutdown, and, more importantly, failing to put up a fight for their own constituents. So let's flash back to a moment of optimism for Liberals and the left just 6 days ago. Last Tuesday, Democrats won big victories across the country. Zoran Mamdani won election as mayor of New York City, Abigail Spanberger coasted to victory in Virginia, Mikey Sherrill defied predictions of a close race for governor in New Jersey, winning by double digits. Democrats even won some lower-profile elections in Georgia. The message of all that was clear. Democrats were putting up a fight against an unpopular and extreme president, and voters liked it. Last Tuesday's results also lifted Liberal morale, but the respite lasted only 5 days. And you can thank those 8 Democratic senators I mentioned for that. The awful octet caved without winning any meaningful concession on the central issue of the shutdown. And that central issue, as I mentioned, is healthcare. The whole entire point of the shutdown, from a Democratic perspective, was to extend important subsidies for people buying their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act's exchanges. And now, after about 40 days, Democrats have given up. The enhanced subsidies will expire, and that means premiums will go up, doubling or tripling in price for some. The poorest will be hardest hit. People struggling to get by on a household income of $28,000 will have to pay more than $1,200 a year extra for their health insurance. People on $35,000 will see a raise of almost $1,600. Those figures from the Kaiser Family Foundation. Another reputable research organisation, the Centre on Budget and Policy Priorities, puts it another way. It says more than 4 million people will lose insurance coverage in the Obamacare marketplace completely. That, in turn, is part of a broader grim picture where the CBPP expects about 15 million people to become uninsured over the next decade because of these changes, as well as other Medicaid cuts in Trump's big spending bill earlier this year. Make no mistake, Monday was a grim night, not only for the Democratic Party, but for the voters who depend upon it. Here's Bernie Sanders summing things up.
Tonight, 8 Democrats voted with the Republicans to allow them to go forward on this continuing resolution. And to my mind, this was a very, very bad vote. What it does, first of all, is it raises healthcare premiums for over 20 million Americans by doubling, and in some cases tripling or quadrupling. People can't afford that when we are already paying the highest prices in the world for healthcare.
Sanders also talked about the bigger political picture.
As everybody knows, just on Tuesday, we had an election all over this country. And what the election showed is that the American people want us to stand up to Trumpism, to his war against working class people, to his authoritarianism. That is what the American people wanted, but tonight, that is not what happened.
A Democratic Party that was on a high just 6 days ago is now in this kind of dismal uproar over the vote. California Governor Gavin Newsom responded with a one-word tweet: pathetic. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lamented that, quote, working people want leaders whose word means something. And for Congressman Greg Casar, the leader of the Progressive Caucus on Capitol Hill, quote, accepting nothing but a pinky promise from Republicans isn't a compromise, it's capitulation. Meanwhile, over on MSNBC's The Weekend, co-anchor Antonia Hilton and guest Dean Obeidallah channeled the frustration many Democratic voters, are surely feeling.
In the wake of the election on Tuesday, the president made remarks saying basically, wow, Republicans are being harmed by all of this, acknowledging that he was on his back foot. And now here he is winning again? How did he do it?
The Democrats, I don't understand how a Democratic senator goes, wow, we won really big. Let me cave now. I don't understand. That makes no sense to me.
To be clear, polls had consistently showed more voters blamed Trump and the GOP for the shutdown than Democrats. And a Kaiser Family Foundation poll just last week showed 74% of Americans, 74%, wanted the Obamacare subsidies extended. How do you take those cards and lose? How do you come off an election where fighters have been rewarded and decide to surrender instead? How do you create a confrontation with a president who your voters loathe and then hand him a win? It's enormously frustrating for liberal Americans. That's why so many voters believe something about this Democratic Party has to change. It might be more primary challenges from progressives, it might be more grassroots action, it might be more willingness to fight, it might be all of the above. But things can't go on like this. Gavin Newsom had it right. Pathetic.
Well, the silver lining, Niall, is that we'll get to do this again in 2.5 months.
Yes, exactly.
So we can have this exact fighting conversation. Look, I understand why, from a progressive or left-wing standpoint, the dissatisfaction is certainly palpable, particularly after Democrats received a mandate of some sort with very, very favorable election results that might have strengthened their resolve to go on. Obviously, I disagree with having the fight over these issues, but given the Democratic Party's policy priorities and the policy priorities of progressive people, I think it did make sense to continue to hold out. So that speaks to really a cowardly leadership. Now, I know Schumer did not join with the 8, but Ro Khanna's blaming him, and probably he quietly signaled for them to go ahead and do this now while he can maintain the pretense of objecting.
I think that's the widespread suspicion. Absolutely, the widespread suspicion.
Yeah, it speaks to, again, a leadership that is out of touch with what not the entire party wants, because there are a lot of moderates in the party, but the most energized faction right now of the Democratic coalition wants to fight Trump on these issues that, as you point out, speak to certain Democratic polling strengths and speak to the fact that they won the election. So I was as surprised as anyone else to say, oh, really, today's the day we're calling an end to this thing. It's music to my ears, but I suppose I don't care either way. The government can remain shut down, and we're going to have to hire everyone back, even all of them.
Well, this is the thing.
Sad.
So Oh, Robby. So two points. Firstly, on the moderates thing, it is worth noting that a number of moderates voted against, did not cave on this. I mean, people like Mark Warner is not some flaming liberal. Jon Ossoff in Georgia.
I mean, they're all flaming liberals.
Well, they're all big government liberals to you. But I mean, this is not the progressive wing of the Democratic Party only that was holding out. They were undercut by people like Fetterman, which is predictable, but also like people like Tim Kaine. To your point, though, about Tim Kaine.
I just always say that.
Oh, do you?
Because he was the vice presidential candidate, most forgettable vice president.
He was quite forgettable, as it happens.
Yes.
But the point about the federal government workers is, Tim Kaine is now trying to use the return of the federal government workers as a kind of fig leaf for doing this deal, having previously supported the shutdown. The reason the federal workers aren't getting paid is because you supported the shutdown in the first place. And from the Democratic perspective, it was supported because this issue of the healthcare and the subsidies was considered so important. So from someone like Tim Kaine's angle, he's picked this fight, has abandoned the principle that was causing the fight, and is now saying, oh, well, we've got things back for federal workers. The federal workers wouldn't have been harmed if you'd never had the shutdown in the first place.
Right.
The point of the shutdown was to try to win the healthcare concession.
But I guess to play devil's advocate, how was there any universe in which they actually win this fight because the Republicans are happy to have the government shut down for as long as possible? They're not. You can't negotiate with the party if they're unified against Trump. Now, probably the counter argument is that Trump himself, a mercurial figure who is actually not like a Paul Ryan type person on any of these issues, might have eventually instructed them to cave, probably. Now, I don't know that that's a likely outcome. The Republicans might have there's nothing you can do. They're more Republicans, and they're happy to just have the government shut down. Yep. And so it falls to Democrats to eventually give in or just have a permanent government shutdown.
I think that the Democrats, I do recognize that dynamic, but I think the Democrats could have held out at least for the compromise that they themselves proposed last week, which was a 1-year extension on the subsidies, not for them to be extended in perpetuity, but to have a 1-year extension, because there are some Republicans who are wary of these subsidies being taken away because they would hurt their own constituents. Yeah. So I think that's an issue as well.
Well, next up, Axios is reporting that up-and-coming Democrat James Talarico, who's a Christian seminarian, had followed adult film stars and OnlyFans models on Instagram. We will discuss that. Stay with us.
Texas Senate candidate James Talarico was discovered to be following several adult female film performers, escorts, and OnlyFans models on social media.
According to a review of his social media accounts by Axios, he follows 10 separate Instagram accounts of women who create adult content or have accounts on escort sites. According to Axios, he has also liked separate photos of an Austin-based Instagram account holder who has an OnlyFans account and an account with an escort service. However, it's important to note that none of the photos include nudity, which is actually banned on Instagram. Now, in the wake of this discovery, some were crying hypocrisy as Talarico has put his faith at the forefront of both his campaign For Senate and his work in the State House, the 36-year-old seminarian has even stated he wants to win back Christians who have left the Democratic Party.
But in response, a spokesperson for his campaign told Axios that it's precisely because of his faith that he avoids judgment on other people's professions. They said, quote, "While James was unaware of how these women make money, he does not judge them for it and will not play into an effort to smear them for clickbait articles. That's exactly what his Christian faith calls him to do." The campaign also told Axios Talarico has messaged with only one of the accounts in question and shared a screenshot of that exchange, which was a simple thank you for an Instagram story appearing to promote his campaign. The campaign team added, quote, "The social media team, including James, follows back and engages with supporters who have large followings and does not investigate their backgrounds." They also clarified that, quote, "James has never subscribed to OnlyFans or an escort service."
Meanwhile, many on the left seem to be eager to dub this a non-story. Political commentator Luke Beasley wrote on X, quote, "Who's supposed to care about this at all? What a waste of time." And senior fellow at the Conservative Manhattan Institute, Jessica Rydell, wrote in her own post, "Perhaps voters should care more about politicians who commit sexual assault, pay porn stars for sex abuse of their partners, defraud business partners, defraud the government, have psychotic breakdowns at airports, and care less about this kind of clickbait garbage." I wonder who the psychotic breakdown at an airport had someone in mind. People on the left are dubbing this a non-story.
Yeah.
If there's anyone in conservative media who thinks this is a big story, I've yet to hear it. This is one of those where all the headline words make it sound very salacious. OnlyFans,
right. Escorts. Yeah.
There's no there to any of this at all, and it's totally fine and a complete non-scandal. I don't know what else to say. There's nothing. He follows these accounts. Okay, but and one of them, the one he'd messaged with, they posted like a story of him on Instagram, probably tagged him in it. This person saying, "Vote for, we love James Talarico, vote for him."
Right.
He said, "Thank you." You might follow back the account even in that process as part of how Instagram's basic functionality works.
Yeah.
So there's that plausibility to it. Then there's the who cares anyway. Even if he thinks women are attractive, I mean, he's not even like
send him to hell immediately.
Right, and he's not. I guess you try to go the hypocrisy route if he's like a far-right preacher against pornography or something. That doesn't really seem to be his shtick at all.
No.
He's also not, as far as I can tell, he's not married, is he?
No, not to my knowledge.
So even if it's like, okay, but your Christian faith compels you to never look at another woman again.
Right.
Well, he's not married. He hasn't made that oath yet, so I don't.
No, exactly.
There's just nothing. Maybe he thinks women are attractive.
I mean, exactly.
How strange,
shock, the scandal of it all. No, I mean, look, going way back in time, I used to enjoy those scandals that used to enmesh like televangelists and so on, as much as the next person. Whenever somebody who was like
caught with male hooker doing cocaine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In a dungeon somewhere. Like, that's all entertaining for us all.
Right.
But this isn't one of those situations whatsoever. It's like a guy following people who, I guess, are hot, and some of them have like escort accounts. There's no suggestion he has used escorts. There's no suggestion he has sought to consort with prostitutes. He followed people who have OnlyFans accounts. Okay.
It's just like when you're young and your mom walks in on you watching some R-rated movie and happens to walk in during the one sex scene in the movie. That's what this feels like.
Exactly.
It's just a normal movie. That was the one scene.
He's got caught. His 15-year-old self has got caught seeing the one sex scene.
It's so ridiculous. And also, we're just past this kind of total moral puritanism. It's just done. It's over. Give it a rest.
Well, I would like to think we're past it. One of the things that frustrates me about, as it were, my own side in the liberal v conservative debates is that I do think there is like, I thought we would have moved past a kind of prurience or puritanism in liberal circles. And when I was a younger man, the liberal side was the pro-sexual freedom side.
Right.
Now that's not quite as simple, and it is prone to these moments of puritanism, which I find just kind of ludicrous.
Yeah, this feels like something that would have been orchestrated by a kind of liberal feminist website in the late 2010s.
Sure.
Maybe during the height of Me Too.
There's objectification of women.
Right, at a time where, Harvey Weinstein and now there's James Talarico, where they would just like casually assert that those are even the ballpark of same behavior.
Yeah.
But no, this is a report from Axios that I have to imagine was given to them by a rival campaign, right? Talarico is seeking the Dems Senate nomination against Colin Allred, who ran last time, possibly Jasmine Crockett, possibly others. So someone of that nature.
It has to be coming from somebody who wants to do him some kind of damage, but I think it might actually have bounced back to his advantage because so many people think it's such a ludicrous story.
It seemed normal and cool.
Exactly. Yeah, normal. Democrats winning back red-blooded men. That's what we want to see, Robby.
You could follow someone also, and then they could start an OnlyFans account later. Everyone's going to have OnlyFans accounts. If YouTube throws us off the platform one more time for political speech, Rising will be on OnlyFans. So stay tuned for that announcement someday.
Crimes of moral turpitude with Rising. Anyhow, actor Billy Bob Thornton had harsh words for his colleagues who are vocal about their political views. Stick with us, we'll be right back to discuss them.
Actor Billy Bob Thornton bashed overly political celebrities with Joe Rogan during a podcast appearance.
The two criticised how actors sometimes use award shows as platforms to bring attention to a specific cause rather than just accepting the award. Let's listen.
I donate to a lot of charities, mainly children's stuff, but nobody knows it. I don't go to the award show and talk about it when I'm getting my award. It's like Ricky Gervais said in that skit of his. He said, "Look, come up here, accept your little award, and I think first of all, unless you have really studied stuff and really know about a subject fully." Who the hell would want to listen to an actor or a musician talk about politics?
Amen. Thornton also said if a celebrity really wanted to do something like save the Badgers, then he or she can just do it and not talk so much about it. The actor added that award winners should thank the people who helped them get there instead of making it about themselves.
The two also touched a bit on politics. Here's part of that.
And politically, I call myself a radical moderate. I'm like very strong in my opinions. But my opinions don't belong to any political party. And, I just look at what makes sense. And I think we need a common sense party in this country. That's actually what I think we need.
Yeah.
It's just figure it out. It's pretty easy to figure out what this is all about.
Well, a lot of agreement I have there with Billy Bob Thornton.
Not often you can say that, but there we are.
And he's was citing, I too love that speech by Ricky Gervais. I think I played it on Rising before, where he said, take your award and saw it off. You spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. It's one of my favorite lines. It's so great. Ricky Gervais, a rare comedian who I am actually entertained by.
Yeah.
Billy Bob Thornton, I don't know much about his political views or what he has to say because he doesn't talk about them, which I think is a good thing. And I am for, more generally, look, everyone has the First Amendment, so they have the right to spout off as much as you want.
Sure.
And I can separate art from artist, and I am perfectly capable of enjoying the performances of peoples whose views I think are idiotic, but they could also just not weigh in. I don't think they're doing, to the extent liberal Hollywood is mostly a Democratic Party thing, I don't think their pronouncements really help them that much. Who was it last week we were talking about who recognized that? It's
was it Sydney?
No. Jennifer Lawrence,
Jennifer Lawrence,
saying that I hate Trump, but me talking about that is not helping, so I'm just not going to say anything. And
doesn't necessarily.
Billy Bob Thornton is a great actor, is one of my favorites, actually. He's fantastic in everything. I particularly liked him in, Fargo. There's the movie Fargo. He wasn't in that, but they have a TV show based on Fargo. He was in the first season playing the bad guy, and he is just great. Sometimes I just watch clips of his performance. It's so great.
What was the movie that he played the barber who barely spoke?
Sling Blade.
Sling Blade.
I enjoyed
That's
his
that
famous role.
Yeah.
But he's just a really awesome presence in so many movies.
So, not to take us completely off the point, but about a decade ago, I was sitting in a green room in a local TV station here, and someone came in to me, and they said one of the most bizarre things anyone has ever said to me, which is, has anyone ever told you that you look a bit like Billy Bob
Oh my
Thornton?
God!
And
I can see it!
I don't see it at all.
I can see it
but
a little
somebody
bit.
a decade later said almost the same thing, and I was like, well, somebody must see it, but I'm perplexed
I
by
can
it.
see it a little bit. That's not crazy.
So it's not an unflattering comparison. I think he's a very handsome fellow. But anyway, to the point here, I mean, look, I think that celebrities do sometimes be sort of destructive or counterproductive to their own views if they are seen as lecturing people or pontificating from on high. In general, I think that celebrities have as much of a right to give their views as anyone else. And I think with some people who have, I mean, someone like Springsteen, who I know you hate and I love, but he's someone who I think his music has represented a certain vision of America, so I'm never that surprised when he speaks up for that in political terms. Someone emerging from the Hollywood Hills to tell everyone that, whatever, some self-indulgent twaddle, that's probably not very useful. But, I take Billy Bob's point at the same time.
Yeah. It's always interesting, the celebrities you'd think you'd like to hear more from are the ones who then do actually shut up about politics. Why can't I think of anyone's names today?
It's advancing age, Robby.
It's advancing age. I'm having a Biden moment. Famous actor Hannibal Lecter.
Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins. Why can't I come up with his name? Fantastic actor. Great in literally everything. Probably maybe the greatest living actor. He did an interview a couple years ago where he said, people often ask me what I think about things, because he has this presence.
Right.
But it's all the writing. He says that. It's the writing for the characters I do. I don't know anything. I don't have anything to say. I talk to someone who's an expert. He's an expert at delivering his lines with that authoritative presence, with that. But that's what the actors do. It's not, it's not from their own minds.
It is a bit odd that people imbue celebrities with a lot of importance on these things about issues or matters that they're obviously not expert about. Now, to take a little bit of a pushback at Billy Bob, I was kind of struck by the fact that in that Rogan interview he said that he donates to a lot of charities, but nobody knows it. I don't go to the award shows and then talk about it. You're talking about it on Joe Rogan.
Maybe he doesn't know that talking about it on Joe Rogan will have more people talking about it at the award show.
Exactly.
That does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way today, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel. And we'll be back with you all week. See you tomorrow.